Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the podcast, the Mavpuckcast. I'm Jason. Jon's here. We're going to talk some Omaha versus Arizona State hockey. Jon, how was your weekend post hockey?
Boy, I'll tell you, like I've said before, when you do something like this podcast, home hockey weekends are kind of exhausting because you want to get pictures, take video of all the interesting things that happen, some game action to spice up the podcast. And you just have to pay really good attention. There are times when I miss the days when I just go to a game, just kind of relax, have some snacks, visit with friends. But now it's like I'm studying for a test. That's the way my UNO hockey fandom is. But as you alluded to, we're going to talk about that exciting series against Arizona State, our final regular season action at Baxter Arena for this season. Hard to believe. We'll be talking about that upcoming series against North Dakota to end the regular season, which has all kinds of implications in a very tight NCHC race for playoff positioning. And you'll want to stay tuned for an episode with a very special interview with UNO Hockey junior forward Jacob Slipek. But before we get to that, we've got to thank our founding members of the Mavpuckcast this season for their support. As I am talking to you, you are seeing a scroll of the names of those who have donated this season to support the Mavpuckcast and Mavpuck.com. Their names will also appear in a scroll at the end of each episode of the Mavpuckcast. And if you'd like to support our efforts here, visit Mavpuck.com/donate. Minimum donation of $18 will get your name on that list. So you got to couple more opportunities for this season, Jason, and I'm sure we'll be doing some episodes during the summer. But we got to talk about that Arizona State series. All kinds of implications for UNO going in. If UNO had gotten 2 regulation wins against the Sun Devils, we would have locked up second place in the NCHC race. That didn't quite happen. Going in to that Friday night game, Tanner Ludke, who's been out for most of this season, skated in warm-ups with the team. So nice to see him out there. He did not play in either game of this series, but great to see him. Back in the uniform, back out there with the team. We definitely miss him this season. First period Friday night, Jason, 5:46 into the first. Arizona State's Cullen Potter puts the Sun Devils up 1-0. It was a power play goal. Cullen, a very talented freshman forward for them, came from the U.S. National Development Program. So it was 1-0 early, but 14-19 into the first, Brock Bremer ties it up on the power play. So the first 2 goals of the game happened on the power play. Ludke shot it in from the blue line. Bremer taps it in the crease. 1-1 there. Late in that first period. And Jason, I thought UNO had some good opportunities in the closing moments of that first period. And I thought they played well in stretches during this game.
Yeah, they had moments in the first that looked pretty good, and like you said, definitely kind of like tailing off into the second period there. They kind of started to find their legs, find their game. The power play goal helps a lot, just to get you into the locker room, back to even. But I came away from that saying that it's 2 very evenly matched teams, so it was going to be a dogfight through the rest of that game.
Absolutely. So game tied 1-1 after the first. Then we go into the second period. There weren't any goals scored until late in that second period. 17-15 into the second. ASU's Ryan Kerwin, player that we profiled on last week's episode of the Mavpuckcast, puts the Sun Devils up 2-1. It was a greasy goal. Simon was just never able to cover the puck. It was just kind of sliding and bouncing around there, and ASU got multiple whacks at it in front of the crease. So it's 2-1 Arizona State after 2, Jason.
Yeah, they were opportunistic. They played a pretty physical game. They got to the grindy areas. We just never seemed to really want to kind of push them out or play that kind of game, which is a little abnormal, I thought, for Omaha. Usually that's the kind of play that I expect us to thrive in. And it costs us there in the second period.
Yeah, definitely. And, being without the services of Harrison Israel, who got injured in the Western Michigan game, certainly tough for the team. He was a dynamic factor for UNO early on in the second half of this season. Third period Friday, down 2-1. Not a bad position to be in, but a minute 10 into the third, Cullen Potter nets his second goal of the night for ASU, puts the Sun Devils up 3-1. So yeah, not a great position to be in there early, down 3-1. And it really changed the complexion of the game in that third period, Jason.
Yeah, it really kind of deflated our energy, and I thought that the arena kind of got a little quiet there, which was unfortunate because we really needed some momentum, some energy to kind of get the guys back, and they just really didn't get much going. A very even first and second period. Just became kind of a show of speed and a blowaway with Arizona State there in the third. And I just never really felt like Omaha had a really good pushback. They had a couple opportunities, a couple plays that just missed. But we struggled on Friday a lot with kind of what we struggled with earlier in the season. Those first passes out of the zone were a little troublesome. That transition game that we kind of got known for on that streak, where we were winning a lot of home games, that transition game just kind of really wasn't there. There was just off on a lot of passes, and so that was just kind of unfortunate because the opportunity was there to lock up home ice.
Yeah, absolutely. 8:19 into that third period, Artem Schlang adds a fourth goal for ASU. Arizona State takes the first game in the series 4-1. They know that they've got to get some points. Got to get some points to stay in that race for a home playoff spot, one of those top 4 playoff spots in the NCHC. Kevin Radler was in net for UNO on Saturday night. We also noticed this weekend Charlie Lurie, who's had a good sophomore campaign for UNO, didn't appear in either game for Arizona State. He was a healthy scratch this weekend, so that was very interesting. Some interesting line combinations this weekend. Jason, that first period, Saturday night, 59 seconds into the first, Sam Stang puts UNO up 1-0. Nice tic-tac-toe sequence. Gavin to Mitchell to Stang. Great tone setter there in the first minute of play, Jason.
Yeah, that was the kind of start that you really needed Omaha to have. They put a lot of pressure on puck carriers. They got the puck into the zone, and they went to work quick with getting the puck to the net front. A lot of those shots were kind of thinking shots on Friday night. They'd take an extra clutch to make sure the puck lays down, and they'd look around to make sure there wasn't a better pass. And, I think that really kind of killed the flow of the game for Omaha. And it seemed like on Saturday we got back to just shoot the puck and go grind something out. And, that was just a good heads up play for that first pass, and then an easy slip to Sam to bang in that back door.
Yeah, absolutely right. We've talked a lot about that. Quick reflexes, quick reaction by the team. Sometimes taking that extra pass, thinking about it too much, ends up thwarting your ability to score. So late in that first period, Ryan Kerwin, who got a goal on Friday night, gets his second goal of the weekend. He ties it up for ASU on the power play. It was a quick shot from the circle, so it's knotted 1-1 after the second period on Saturday. 5:22 into the second, Ryan Kerwin gets his second goal of the night, third of the weekend, deflects the puck into the net. So they are leading 2-1. Jason, the lights went out during the second. You guys were there Friday nights. You were on the road for lacrosse and hockey on Saturday, and Jolene yesterday was like, why didn't you guys tell us that the lights went out? And I'm like, well, we tweeted it, but yeah, kind of reminded me of that Super Bowl in New Orleans several years ago where the Harbaugh brothers were coaching against each other and the power went out. So yeah, the power went out, Jason.
on the ice and quite literally, I guess.
I will.
Yeah, that was a rough second period. The firepower for Omaha that we saw to start the first, I think, kind of deflated a lot. It just kind of gradual decline through the first, and then the second looked a lot like the third period. Just couldn't really get anything going. The chances that they had were kind of one-offs, and there wasn't a lot of control. So you usually ask me, what I was feeling out after the end of something. I wasn't very confident going into the third that we could pull that off. It just didn't seem like we had it. But it was going to take something, in the third, to really kind of just tip the scales in our favor. And I think that comes, not early on in the third, like we would probably want to feel pretty good, but about midway through that third is when UNO really started to turn it on. Their game started to change. They started to attack puck carriers in the third period a lot earlier, and I think that was the recipe. When you're dealing with a high speed, high skill team like Arizona State. Don't give them a chance to even get started, and that really I thought made the difference for UNO in the third.
Yeah, they have some really talented skaters on that Sun Devil team. And as you mentioned, our shot totals kind of declined. Arizona State was out shooting us 30-16 after two periods. So not great. And as you mentioned, early on in the third, we weren't sure what was going to happen. Down 2-1. But 7:10 into the third, Jimmy Glenn ties it up 2-2. And my apologies to our loyal listeners and watchers and Jimmy Glenn. I missed that goal. I mean, I had the phone recording, but I was so caught up in the action. I was looking at the ice. Normally, I kind of look at the ice, but then I looked down at the phone, and the phone was out of position. So sorry, Jimmy. I did not get your game tying goal, but 2-2, UNO, 7:10 into the third. And then 8:02 into the third, Griffin Ludke puts UNO up 3-2. A rebound off of a Nolan Krenzen shot in transition got that done. Like we were talking about just moments ago, the transition game was definitely on display with that goal, Jason.
Yeah, and that puck presence, getting, Krenzen not looking for a pass there, thinking they can slide it over, just took the advantage, took the shot. It's kind of that shot pass mentality, and it comes off semi hot off the goalie's pads, and oddly enough, on a 4-on-4, our rush is two defensemen running up the ice, but it works out well for your Omaha there.
Yeah, absolutely. It is crazy to think that was two defensemen. Kind of reminds me last season at the end of the season, Kirby Proctor started showing his great offensive prowess as a defenseman. So who knew? 132 left in the game. We thought maybe Arizona State's Artem Schlang had what seemed to be the game-tying goal, but it was played with a high stick. Now, a lot was going on, Jason, and from our angle, we thought maybe they were going to review this for goaltender interference. That was kind of our impression up there. Everything moves so fast. We're some distance away there in the upper bowl. I didn't see the high stick, and we weren't sure who put the puck in the nets. So we wondered if it was reviewed for goaltender interference. When I went back and looked at my video, I wasn't sure if the puck went into the net before Radler was interfered with, but that's not what they were reviewing it for at all. It was a high stick, Jason.
It was, and we were actually sitting down for dinner after the hockey festivities and had the game finally on where we could watch live. And Jolene had said, "Oh, they scored, they tied it." I'm like, "No, they didn't. That's high stick." And she was like, "What?" And I'm like, I'm looking at my little phone, and yeah, I'm like, it's totally over the crossbar. But the announcers had said that they thought they were going to review for goaltender interference, and I'm like, oh man, we may have screwed ourselves, because if that's what we're reviewing for, I wasn't sure that we were going to win that, because it's kind of one of those bang bang, like you said, it's a bang bang play, and you have to ask yourself, like, is the puck on its way in before the player makes the contact? And there was also the question of, was he pushed in by, I think Nolan Krenzen was there.
Yep.
And so, those types of things, like there's a lot of like, what is this ref going to think about that play kind of situation? But I was glad to hear that they reviewed it for the high stick and not the goaltender interference, because I thought that was a pretty clear cut that puck was above the crossbar when his stick makes contact with it. And so glad that they called that one back. Definitely a momentum swing in our favor. I'm curious if that's why I saw on the score sheet that Schlein got a unsportsmanlike conduct literally at the end of the game.
Yeah, people were asking me about that unsportsmanlike conduct, and we heard them announce that. I don't know what the scoop was. I did not see it. I'll have to go back and look through my clips. If you're watching this and we did see something, you will be seeing it. No, I was as surprised as you to hear that. So I don't know if he said something or something happened after that. Did not see it after the game. After the game at all. So
I was curious if he was upset with that call, thinking it should have gone the other direction, and said something. And that's what, because on the broadcast, like I only see what they're pointing the camera at. And they're pretty quick to take that camera off of the ice once the horn blows. And so I was curious if there was something that happened, because it wasn't like sometimes with fisticuffs and stuff, like you'll see two guys get two unsportsmanlike conducts right at the end of the game or something. That doesn't shock me type of thing. But this was one player, 20 minutes and 0 seconds, unsportsmanlike conduct. I'm like, I wonder what happened there.
Yeah, I'm curious too. And we were talking about that in the lobby after the game. So I did not see anything. So I don't know what happened. With 7.3 seconds left, Jason, Brady Risk puts in an empty netter and he bows to the students, which was great. Mavs go on to win 4-2 and salvage a split in the series, which is important. So some series notes, as I mentioned, UNO gets 3 important conference points, but their 7-game home winning streak came to an end during that Friday game against Arizona State. Arizona State locked up home ice with their win on Friday. You may not have noticed this. As you know, I spent an exorbitant amount of time analyzing this. We still have a shot at getting second place. So we'll talk about that later on in the podcast.
Tinfoil hats on.
Tinfoil hats. But Jason, I got to ask you, who is your player of the week for the final home series of the regular season against Arizona State?
I think there's an obvious one. You always like it when I leave the obvious one for you. So I'm going to leave the obvious one for you and see if you actually take it.
Okay.
Or if you go off the board too. And, I'm trying to remember if we've had Griffin Lucky as our player of the weekend or not. But honestly, like I thought he, had a really, really good game. The setup on the Friday night goal, that was a good heads up play. I liked that one. Drew some attention to me. I thought he played a lot better physically inside the zone too, which, for weeks now, I thought he kind of tried to get into more of a skating puck moving kind of guy. And I just like the role that he played this weekend. I thought it really helped. And then to chip in that goal on Saturday, I thought was, just the icing on the cake for him. So I thought he deserved a call out, but he's not who I thought would be the obvious call for player of the weekend. So we'll see if you pick up on that one.
Well, I don't know who is going to be your obvious call for player of the weekend, because I was trying to be somewhat creative with my picks. And I actually had junior defenseman Griffin Ludke, one of the 2 players I put down here, not knowing who you were going to pick. As you mentioned, he had the game-winning goal on Saturday and an assist on Bremer's goal on Friday night. He has 2 goals and 11 assists this season. And as you mentioned, we need him to be big during this final stretch. It is too bad that he didn't get to play with his brother again this season, because that was a lot of fun to watch both of them out there on the ice last season. But Jason, I'm picking forward Brock Bremer. He had 1 goal on Friday nights, but he had numerous opportunities in that game. He has 4 goals and 7 assists this season and has tallied a goal in the past 2 series. Love Brock Bremer. I just want to do this so we can use our little Brock Skeeto graphic on the podcast because we don't have many more times to do that. But there were a lot of good players. Jacob Gavin had a good weekend. Sam Stang, of course, solid. Who was your obvious pick for the weekend?
Sam Stang, statistically by far our best forward. And we like if we went based on advanced metrics, or there's a lot of things. Like if you just picked one stat for a forward, it'd probably just be us saying Sam Stang every week. So we kind of have to unfortunately go away from that every once in a while. Otherwise, it gets a little boring. But he deserves accolades because he was a really strong player for Omaha this weekend. But you mentioned the Broxquito there, and kind of you know we love his grit and his grind there. That's one of the things ever since he came here. You and I have both said we appreciate of his game. I really liked his how do you say, like, his restraint. Arizona State could tell that, like, he was trying to get under their skin, and he knew that they'd let him get maybe one more jab at the puck or something when the goalie covers and stuff, and he knows he's going to get attention for that. The defenseman's going to come over and give you a shot or something. But I liked how there was a couple times that he just stood his ground and was like, I'm not getting sucked into, matching minors or something. And it gave us some advantages on Saturday. And so, those are the types of things that don't end up in the score sheet. And that's why you and I always talk about wanting to go kind of a little bit rogue on some of these picks and stuff, is because things like that, if you're not at the game watching, if you're not habitual hockey fan or something like that, if you're just a casual, come to a game a few times, like you probably don't appreciate what that gives a team, the energy and the fuel that he has when he gets out there and just kind of starts running around. And for a little guy, he'll lay some pretty big hits and stuff. And it's, I think that when he starts playing that game and he's gotten back to that, that's when we've seen him start producing more on the score sheet that people notice.
Yeah, plays with a lot of heart, a lot of tenacity, and yeah, yeah,
He'll
we
be missed.
I know he will definitely be missed. Got to talk about some things you missed at Baxter Arena.
What did I miss?
Well,
The light's going out. We already covered that one.
you missed a lot of well, you didn't miss a lot of stuff. You missed the lights going out. We already talked about that, but I do have to mention that it was senior night on Saturday night. And before the game, they honored our lone senior, Zach Erdahl. We have a lot of fifth years, obviously. So all of them got a chance to skate on the ice, be introduced. I know Bridget was concerned that wouldn't happen, so she spent a lot of time last week on social media lobbying for it. So the fifth year skated out, except Aiden Gallagher and Harrison Israels, who walked out there on the carpet, but they had a kind of a nice presentation for them. It didn't go on too long, but we just want to thank those guys, our transfers, Sam Stang, Aiden Gallagher, Harrison Israels, Brady Risk. But then we've got to thank some of those long tenured UNO Mavericks like Brock Bremer, Nolan Krenzen, Jimmy Glynn. Yeah, it's been great to have those guys.
It's an odd year because usually, we're celebrating seniors. Even the past few years since COVID, we've been celebrating fifth year guys and stuff that had been with the team for a while. I don't think it's any secret or something. Like, UNO had to go out and get a lot of guys in the portal last summer, and so we've got quite a few guys that are here. Just this was it for them, or maybe 1 or 2 year kind of things and stuff. And so, it's different from there, but it's still as a fan and podcast pundit, I guess. I appreciate everything that they brought to the team this year, and the part of Omaha hockey history that they are. And we've said it before. People like Stang and Risk and Israel's specifically are three that we've called out and said, man, I wish we would have had them for more than just this one year. So I'm glad that at least they get a time in the spotlight to really put some emphasis on, their role in, Omaha hockey history and, where this team goes in the future and stuff. It comes back to the performance that they had and the contributions that they made to this team this year, even though it was only one year for them.
It's been great to have these guys on the roster, and I'm really glad that they took time to honor those guys who transferred in, who likely were honored by the previous team that they played with. I think it's always nice to honor them again, playing for our team, and don't give them a choice on that. Just honor guys like Sam Stang, Israels, and Risk, because they've been really important to the team this year. And even though they're going to wear the uniform just one season, they will always be Mavericks. So we are very thankful that they came to UNO. Jason, we've got to talk about the NCHC standings. We're not probably going to talk much about the pairwise rankings because we're not really going anywhere in the pairwise rankings. I will say just to have it in here, we are 27th in the pairwise. And if I recall correctly off the top of my head, Jason, we are behind Long Island in the pairwise rankings. So the comparison games is not working out that well for us or the NCHC this season as it regards at-large berths. Normally, if you're a team that finishes in the top half of the NCHC standings, you're a lock for an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. But this year, that just is not the case. And we've had seasons like that before, so it's kind of one of those odd years. But looking at the conference standings, Western Michigan locked up the Penrose Cup. They will be the number one seed, and they've locked up first place in the conference. So congratulations to the Broncos. Second place currently is Arizona State. Third place with 41 points is Omaha. So what do you think about that as we're going down the list here? What do you think about that placement right now going into the final series of the regular season for UNO?
Oh, I think a lot of people would say that we're, in a better position than what we had expected. Just not knowing how guys were going to gel coming in, all the things we talked about in the first episode of the season and stuff. Like you just kind of didn't know, and just like Arizona State, you didn't know how they were going to handle, playing at the level of NCHC all season. And so you got to feel good about where you are, but at the same time, you have to understand that, there's more to do this season if the team wants it. If you want an NCAA bid, it's going to take a lot of work. It's the last year. We've talked about that before too. It's the last year that the Frozen Face-Off is going to be in the Twin Cities, and we made it there for the first time last year. Let's, do we want to repeat, or do we want to be the team that's like, we only went once and that was it? And so this team they have some special guys on there. They could do something really great. And honestly, the way we performed in the two mini tournament things that we've gotten to, with the Desert Classic and the Cactus Cup, right? I think that's what they called them.
Or no, the Icebreaker out in Vegas,
Vegas, yeah.
The season, and then the Cactus Cup, being in
Cactus
the first
Cup.
Cactus Cup this year.
Yeah, like I thought we played well in that format. So honestly, like if we can get to St. Paul, I like our odds, because even though we know we'll probably see Western at some point in that, you assume at least that you will. Like I just like the mindset of like this team in a situation where it's not how you adjust, it's how you play. They just seem to thrive in that. And so it's just figuring out what can they put together and how can they get there? So can they do it?
Arizona State, as I mentioned, is in second place with 47 points. We are in third with 41. And I'm not saying that this is a realistic scenario, but if UNO were to go to North Dakota this upcoming weekend and get 2 regulation wins. So get 2 wins in regulation, 6 conference points. we would tie Arizona State. Now, Arizona State is not playing this final weekend of regular season action, and we would have more regulation wins versus Arizona State. And that's the second tiebreaker. The first tiebreaker is head-to-head wins. Well, we went even against Arizona State this season. We went 2-2 against the Sun Devils. So it would go to that next tiebreaker. And my understanding is we would leapfrog them and we would be in second place. So how do you like that dream scenario, Jason, of getting second place in the conference race? Not likely to happen, but people were talking about that. So I just thought I would put it out there. I ran a lot of different scenarios. I put it out on Twitter. I put it out on Facebook. Before I did that, I texted it to you in the group so that I was able to make some adjustments because we were trying to figure out the scenario that had Denver coming to Omaha to play in a couple of weeks. And it took a lot. Now, Jason, what are your thoughts on all this? Do you want me to run down some of these scenarios or not? Because I can go.
I think if we started talking about all of the scenarios as to who could finish where, we'd be here for like a 4-hour podcast. And I'm guessing no one wants to listen to us for that long. So, I like you though. I went a little bit different route. I utilized some AI components and plugged in a bunch of stuff and try to go with like based on the last 3 years how teams have fared against each other to see like what's the most likely scenario based on that. And so we can talk about that one. We can talk about who you what you think from your observations.
Well, I'll have you tell us what the large language model managed to spit out for you. There, Jason. I tend to think, and I don't know if you agree or not, but I tend to think the most likely outcome is that we will be playing North Dakota 2 weekends in a row.
As many times as we've seen North Dakota the past few years, it's kind of just I think it's just got a bad taste in people's in fans' tip mouth. You know, it's like yet again of like we face them at the end of the season and we gotta go face them first round, and you know, or we were up there and now they're coming back here, and it's like I like the dichotomy of us seeing someone different per se. And I think, you know, from a matchup perspective, I think we match up against Cairo College a little bit better than some of the other teams. And so, you know, outside of the dream scenario, which is I'd love to be two, you know, facing off against Duluth at home, like that would be great. I like our odds in that, but I don't see that. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that, you know, North Dakota's too good. We're kind of getting into like predicting the next series a little bit here too, but I also don't know. I don't know that Denver's like. There's a lot of people talking about like the way that the Denver CC end of season happens. Because they play for a gold pan, they mandated with the league like they have to play each other 4 times, and so their series are always home and away. So they'll play, and I'd have to look it up. Friday night in Denver, and then Saturday in Cairo College or something like that. But like Denver, I just think is at a point where they know they're prepping for their run, and it's not about points or positioning or something. It's about elevating their level of play. And so I think you've got to plan on 6 points for Denver coming out of that. So I think for me personally, and according to the large language model, it had us at 4th and North Dakota coming to Baxter Arena for first round of the NCHC playoffs.
Well, that's a possibility. And that's the scenario a lot of us have been talking about. Scenario that's similar to 2 seasons ago when we finished the season at North Dakota, and then North Dakota came to Omaha and beat us in a really frustrating 3-game series. And we'll be talking about North Dakota in our preview coming up. So again, they're a team that gets a lot of talented recruits. There's a lot of talent on that roster. The scenario I don't want to have happened is UNO getting swept by North Dakota and having DU split with CC, although you don't think that that's going to happen, and us having to go to Denver to play a 3-game series. I definitely do not want that because we have struggled in the Mile High City against the Pioneers the last decade or so, and that's not a matchup I would like to see, Jason.
No, because I want to go to St. Paul and watch Denver and Omaha there, and so I don't like that scenario because it takes one of the teams I actually like watching out of the mix. I don't mind if North Dakota's not there; it doesn't faze me any.
Anyway, it's going to be fascinating to see in this last weekend. It's amazing that so much is in flux. St. Cloud State could finish 7th place. Minnesota Duluth could finish 8th. Minnesota Duluth, by my calculations, could also finish in 6th. I mean, there's just a lot going on this upcoming weekend, and it's an exciting and honestly kind of a frustrating time. I really wish that UNO had been able to find a way to win 2 games in regulation, Jason, against Arizona State, because then it'd be super relaxing. We would have locked up 2nd place in the conference race and we could just chill out until Minnesota Duluth or St. Cloud State came to town in a couple weeks.
I think the most frustrating part is, are we playing at home or not? Is still the question.
Yeah.
Like, I would have much preferred, to be able to sit here and say we know we have home ice, and it's just unfortunate that we're still in this, like, everything's up for grabs. It's not just talking about who might Omaha play, it's where might Omaha play who.
Yeah, absolutely right. It puts a lot of doubt going into that final series up at North Dakota, which a lot of people have pointed out. We've had success up there over the years, but it's going to be interesting, Jason, to see what happens. But got to talk about that North Dakota series now. March 7th and 8th at Ralph Engelstad Arena. We took a bus trip up there in 2011, a Mavpuck bus trip. Bridget organized it. There was a woman in the North Dakota ticket office at Ralph Engelstad Arena who was very kind, carved out 50 seats for us up there at the Ralph. We got to take a tour of it on Saturday morning. A really beautiful, beautiful facility, massive facility for collegiate hockey. North Dakota is 18, 13, and 2 overall this season. They are 13, 8, and 1 in NCHC play. They are 9, 6, and 1 at Ralph Engelstad Arena this season. And they are 4 and 2 in their last 6 games. They split at Denver. They swept UMD at the Ralph. And then they split at Western Michigan this last weekend. They are 10th in the nation on the power play, but they are 48th in the nation on the penalty kill. And I just want to apologize, Jason, on last week's episode of the Mavpuckcast. I was really tired when we did that episode. I said that Arizona State was 82% on the power play, and that was not correct at all. I think they were 82% on the penalty kill, but I must have typed that in wrong. So interesting. They're doing well on the power play, North Dakota is, but 48th on the penalty kill. So that'll be interesting to see how special teams play is for UNO this upcoming weekend. North Dakota, of course, is led by head coach Brad Berry. He is 224, 117, and 35 in 10 seasons in Grand Forks. He won a national championship in the 2015-16 season, his first season as a head coach up there. And I know that a lot of fans are frustrated that they haven't gotten back to the championship game. But I got to tell you, I like Brad Berry. I enjoy listening to the interviews that North Dakota has and that appear on some of the North Dakota content on Midcoast Sports. I think he's a good guy. Jason, your initial thoughts here on this North Dakota series. We touched on it a little bit, talking about the NCHC standings. What do you think? There's a lot on the line. There's a lot of scenarios that could happen. What do you think of UNO's chances up in Grand Forks to finish out the regular season?
It's tough to predict. It's 2 teams that are really evenly matched. You went through a lot of the stats and stuff, but similar power plays, similar penalty kills, similar records, similar size. Omaha's about a year older on average age, and so you could argue maybe a little bit of a bump there with some experience and things like that. And goaltending honestly is not that far off. So it's hard because there's nothing that you can look to and say like, all right, you know, if this team's power play gets going, then they'll probably win, the game. Or, if this team can play this way, if the game doesn't get, a lot of times you talk about speedy teams like Arizona State. Like if the game doesn't get hemmed down, they've got the better. These teams play a similar style. Like there's just so much that's 50-50 on this. And so, ultimately what it's going to come down to, I think, is going to be, do we want it more than them?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And we got to be careful about those momentum swings. You talk about that atmosphere up at Ralph Engelstad Arena, big crowd for those games, and you don't want to get behind the eight ball early.
And
Jason,
you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. Like the turnovers that we were making against Arizona State, especially on Friday, more so than Saturday. Those are the types of things that we've got to clean. You have to clean up if you want to win this game. You have to make smart first passes. We need to push the play. We need to play our game. Don't get sucked into things. And watch out for those power plays. They're going to get some opportunities and stuff, but if we're giving them a lot of chances in the power plays, it's just a matter of time. And when we get our opportunities, we've got to be better. We weren't great against Arizona State on the power play. A lot of our power plays kind of looked, remedial. Our entries were pretty bad. We've got to do a better job of, especially on the power play, getting the puck into the zone, getting some pressure, quick shots, bodies following pucks. That it's simple. Like it's stuff that these guys have been preached at since midget hockey practically about how this stuff works. But that's the key. If they want to win these games, that's what they have to do. They have to go in and say, one, we can do this, and two, this is how we're going to do this.
absolutely right. So players to watch, Jason, sophomore defenseman Jake Livanovich leads North Dakota in overall points with 4 goals, 22 assists this season. He also has 63 blocked shots. The team's goal leader is freshman Sasha Boisvert, 14 goals and 11 assists. He had 2 goals last week during the Western Michigan series. Former Mav Cam Berg was out for 10 games this season due to a foot injury that happened back in November. The reports I read said he had to have surgery, but he is back and he has 11 goals and 8 assists this season. And in net, Arizona State transfer TJ Semptenfelter has appeared in 26 games this season. He has a 2.66 goals against average and a .907 save percentage. And sophomore Hobie Hedquist is also an option. He has a 2.74 goals against average and a .897 save percentage this season. So as you talked about, pretty evenly matched teams. They play a similar style, and it's going to be exciting. This is the first time since the NCHC has existed that we're only playing North Dakota in one series during a season. Previously, before the addition of Arizona State, we were North Dakota's travel partner every year. So we played 4 games, a home and home series with them every year. So it's kind of weird going into this last series of the regular season, not having seen UNO match up against the Fighting Hawks. Now I'm going to ask you, Jason, what's your prediction? Do you think we're going to get swept? Do you think we're going to split? Do you think we're going to sweep? What do you think is going to happen up there in Grand Forks with a lot of playoff implications on the line?
A lot of playoff implications. Two similar teams. I think the 50-50 concept carries over to the prediction. I'm going to say a split. I think it's the most logical thing. The question marks are the thing too for Omaha. Like it's not just how they're going to play and stuff, but is Israel's healthy and can he make a comeback for North Dakota or not? Is his season done? I don't know. This team changes dramatically if you put him in a dot and you've got him out on the ice and stuff. And then you had mentioned Tanner Ludke was out skating around. If he's healthy and ready to return for a playoff run or something, it makes this team different. It gives them another asset that could potentially hurt North Dakota. Something else that they have to game plan for, and especially with Tanner, it's a dynamic that most teams can't put a finger on. You can't look at early in the season how he did because he didn't play that many games. So it's really hard to anticipate like what's this team going to look like. And from a coaching standpoint, you have a great opportunity if Tanner's coming back, more so than Israel's with like saying, okay, so how are we going to mix up these lines? Do you put him back with Erdahl? Well, you put him with Erdahl because you had finally put Israel's and Risk back together, and so that kind of was your hope for a 1-2 punch was Erdahl and Ludke, and then Israel's and Risk. And so now if Israel's isn't in there but Ludke is, do you try him out with Brady Risk and see what happens? Do you split that lineup with Erdahl? How does he handle with Hillman on the that matchup? Like, so I don't know what they're gonna do. I actually kind of like our odds a little bit better if we make North Dakota think about like how are we going to handle this player that comes out of the blue kind of thing. So I'm hoping that something like that just gives us the edge.
I'm going to predict a split as well, Jason. Like I said, tough to go to Grand Forks and get a win. And look, I would rather not play up there 2 weekends in a row. And we have something to say about that. So hopefully we can get it done, Jason. Friday's game will be at 6:36 p.m. Central Time in Grand Forks, and Saturday's game will be at 6:07 p.m. Central. You can listen to the games on 1290 Coil in Omaha or online on the Varsity Network app. Mike Valancourt and Terry Leahy have the call. Friday's game will be on CBS Sports Network, and Saturday's game will be on NCHC TV. And normally Jason's ranting about what games are or are not going to be on. I do not have CBS Sports Network. I don't have a cable or satellite package. I don't have a multi-channel streaming bundle. And CBS Sports Network is one of those oddities that you can't like subscribe to directly on streaming. I mean, I'm a Paramount Plus subscriber, which is owned by Viacom CBS, but CBS Sports Network isn't included. This is just my annual plug where I say I would love for our games to be on ESPN Plus as they are in Hockey East and the ECAC.
Well, I guess the answer to that, or the solution to that, John, is I guess you just have to come over for dinner on Friday, huh?
Okay, so you guys are not going to be out of town.
No, we are not out of town this weekend.
Oh, I'm really surprised you guys are not out of town. You've been
I know.
a lot of activities with the girls going on during this second half. Yeah, so we will have to make plans to do that. I mean, people were giving me all kinds of ways. They're like, just sign up for your free 30 days of YouTube TV, and if something happens with the weather or something else, we may have to do that, but that would be great to come and see you guys. So plan accordingly, fans. They won't both be on NCHC TV. Bridget would like them to be on both, but that's not the way that we do it. And of course, be sure to follow Mavpuck on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all of our social channels to stay up to date for this final weekend of regular season action for the Mavs in NCHC play. But till next time, Jason, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.